You know that feeling when you check your savings account and see a nice round number
Gains
sitting
like
there?
this are real and
Maybe it's
significant. This
$5,000,
$5,000
maybe it's $20,000. And you just feel good about it, like you're doing the right thing. You're being responsible. You're not blowing it on something stupid. It's just sitting there, safe, growing a little bit every month. Here's the uncomfortable truth nobody told you. That money you're so proud of might be the single most financially dangerous decision you're making right now. And I don't mean that in a dramatic clickbait kind of way. I mean it in a cold, mathematical, let me show you the numbers kind of way. Because by the end of this video, you're going to look at your savings account completely differently. Some of you are going to be a little angry. Some of you are going to be relieved that you finally understand what's actually happening. And all of you are going to know exactly what to do about it. My name is Zach, and I spend way too much time thinking about the invisible ways the financial system quietly works against regular people. If you're someone who has money sitting in a savings account right now because it feels like the smart, safe thing to do, and you've never really questioned whether safe is actually safe, make sure to hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up if this helps you out. All right, let's get into it. When most people think about financial risk, they picture losing money. They picture the stock market crashing. They picture some investment going sideways. They picture checking their account and seeing a number smaller than what they put in. And that fear is completely rational. Losing money is bad. Nobody's arguing with that. But here's what most people don't realize. You can lose money without the number ever going down. Let me say that again because it sounds like a riddle, but it's not. You can be absolutely, positively losing wealth, losing real purchasing power, while your account balance climbs higher every single month. This is called inflation. And I know you've heard about inflation, but I don't think most people have ever actually sat down and run the math on what it does to money that's just sitting still. So that's exactly what we're going to do today. But first, let me challenge an assumption that almost everyone carries around without ever questioning it. The assumption is this: keeping money in a savings account is the cautious, conservative, responsible choice. Banks have spent decades reinforcing this idea. Your parents probably reinforced this idea. Every time someone says, make sure you have an emergency fund, this idea gets reinforced. And look, having liquid savings is genuinely important. I'm not saying throw your emergency fund into crypto. That's not the point of this video. The point is that beyond your emergency fund, beyond your 3 to 6 months of expenses buffer, leaving large amounts of money in a standard savings account isn't the safe choice. It's just a slower, quieter version of losing money, one that doesn't feel painful because the number on your screen keeps going up. Let's do the actual math, because this is where it gets really interesting. The average traditional savings account at a major bank in the United States right now pays somewhere around 0.45% APY, and that's being generous. Many of the big banks, Chase, Bank of America, Wells Fargo, are paying closer to 0.01% to 0.02% on standard savings accounts. The FDIC puts the national average at around 0.46% as of recent data. Meanwhile, inflation, as measured by the Consumer Price Index, has averaged around 3.3% per year over the last 30 years. Even in calmer periods, the Federal Reserve's own target is 2%, and anyone who's been grocery shopping or paying rent in the last few years knows it's been considerably higher than that. So let's run a simple scenario. You have $20,000 in a standard savings account paying 0.5% annually. You're proud of it. It's your financial cushion. After 1 year, you've earned $100 in interest. Your account says $20,100. You feel fine. But inflation ran at 3% that year, which means the purchasing power of your $20,000 decreased by about $600. So in real terms, in terms of what that money can actually buy you, you went from $20,000 to roughly $19,500 in purchasing power. You gained $100 on paper, you lost $500 in reality. Now, let's stretch that out, because this is where the numbers get genuinely alarming. Over 10 years, that $20,000 in a 0.5% savings account grows to about $21,023. Not bad, right? You made $1,000 doing nothing. But with 3% annual inflation, the purchasing power of $20,000 today drops to the equivalent of about $14,880 in today's dollars after 10 years. You need $26,870 just to have the same purchasing power you started with. You have $21,223. You needed $26,870 to break even. You are $5,855 behind where you started in real terms, even though your account balance went up. That's not safety. That's a slow leak in your financial tire. You don't notice it until you're on the side of the road wondering how you got there. Now, here's the part that really stings, because it's not just about what inflation does to your savings. It's about what you could have had if that money was working differently. This is the opportunity cost conversation, and most people never have it with themselves honestly. Let me show you two versions of the same person. We'll call them both Alex. Same age,
On paper,
30
we
years
expect a
old,
gain of
same
$100,
amount of money,
but in reality,
$20,000,
we face a loss
same
of
income,
$500.
same financial discipline. The only difference is where they put that $20,000. Alex A keeps it in a traditional savings
Look at this
account
great rate. 4.5% is way better than 0.5%.
By age
A much
60,
smarter choice.
Alex A has about $23,240. Looks okay, but adjusted for 3% inflation, that $23,240 is worth about $9,560 in today's purchasing power. Alex A essentially cut their wealth in half over 30 years while feeling responsible the entire time. Alex B takes that same $20,000 and puts it in a broad market index fund averaging 7% annually, which is actually the conservative inflation-adjusted estimate for the S&P 500's historical average return. By age 60, Alex B has $152,244. Adjusted for that same 3% inflation, that's still worth about $62,800 in today's purchasing power. Same person, same starting money, same 30 years. One ends up with $9,560 in real wealth. The other ends up with $62,800 in real wealth. That's the math of inaction. That's what safe actually costs. And I want to be really clear here. I'm not saying
As you can see, the numbers are up,
golden ticket.
and the projections
It has
look
down years.
even
It's
better.
volatile. You'll watch the number drop and it'll feel terrible. But over long time horizons, the historical data is consistent. The risk of doing nothing has almost always been higher than the risk of investing broadly and waiting. Now, you might be thinking, okay, Zach, but what if I need that money? What if something comes up? And that's a fair objection, which is exactly why I want to talk about what safe money actually means and where it belongs. Here's the thing. If the math is this clear, why do so many people, smart, educated, financially conscious people, still leave too much money in low-yield savings accounts? This is where it gets really interesting, because it's not a knowledge problem, it's a psychological problem. There's a well-documented cognitive bias called loss aversion, first studied by Daniel Kahneman and Amos Tversky in the 1970s. The core finding, the pain of losing money is psychologically about twice as powerful as the pleasure of gaining the same amount. Losing $100 feels roughly as bad as gaining $200 feels good. This is hardwired into us. It kept our ancestors from gambling the tribe's food supply, but it also keeps modern humans from making objectively better long-term financial decisions because the potential of loss feels more real than the certainty of slow erosion. A savings account, psychologically, feels safe because the number only goes up. Even if what that number represents is quietly shrinking, we don't feel it the same way. The brain doesn't experience inflation the way it experiences watching a stock portfolio dip. One is visible and immediate, the other is invisible and gradual. There's also something called the illusion of control. When money is in a savings account, you feel like you have total control over it. You can see it, you can touch it, you can move it tomorrow if you want. The moment you invest it, even in something historically stable, there's a perceived loss of control, even though the actual long-term outcome is almost certainly better. Add to this the status quo bias, our deeply human tendency to prefer the current
This
state
shows
of
how
things
inflation
over
affects
change,
purchasing power.
even when
Over
change is
time,
objectively
$20,000 buys
beneficial.
less. Its
And
value
you've got a
shrinks.
recipe for millions of people quietly losing wealth while feeling like they're doing the right thing. The banks, by the way, know all of this. They're not confused about why you keep your money there. They're counting on it. They take your deposits, lend them out at 6, 7, 8%, mortgage rates, personal loans, credit cards, and hand you back 0.5%. The spread between what they charge borrowers and what they pay depositors is how they make billions every year using your money. Now, I want to be fair here because I'm not making the argument that
See this
savings
chart?
accounts are
It's
always
time to
wrong.
buy. The trend is up.
Context
Buy
matters.
now.
There
Don't
are
wait. Act
specific
now.
situations where keeping money liquid in a savings account is absolutely the correct move. Emergency fund. 3 to 6 months of living expenses, maybe more if you have a variable income or dependents, should be liquid and accessible. A high-yield savings account is perfect for this. Not a standard savings account at a big bank, but a high-yield account at an online bank that's currently paying somewhere in the 4 to 5% range. That's actually competitive with inflation in a way that traditional accounts aren't. Short-term savings goals. Saving for a down payment in the next 12 to 24 months? Saving for a car you're buying next year? Money you need in the near term should not be in the stock market. Markets can drop 20 or 30% and take years to recover. If you need the money soon, you can't wait for recovery. Keep that money safe and liquid. Operational cash. Money you use for monthly bills and regular expenses should be accessible and stable. The problem isn't savings accounts. The problem is using a savings account as a long-term wealth-building strategy. It isn't one. It never was. It just feels like one because the number goes up every month. Before we get to investing, I want to talk about the immediate, low-effort upgrade almost everyone can make right now. If you have money sitting in a savings account at Chase, Bank of America, Wells Fargo, or any traditional brick-and-mortar bank paying 0.01% to 0.5%, there are FDIC-insured online high-yield savings accounts paying between 4 and 5% right now. Same deposit insurance, same accessibility, just a dramatically higher return. Institutions like Marcus by Goldman Sachs, Ally Bank, and SoFi. These aren't risky. They're FDIC insured up to $250,000, just like your bank. Let me run the math quick. That same $20,000 moved from a 0.5% account to a 4.5% high-yield account earns $900 in year one instead of $100. That's $800 more for doing absolutely nothing except clicking a few buttons and waiting a few business days for a transfer to clear. Over 5 years, you've got about $24,870 instead of $20,512. That's a difference of over $4,300 for what is genuinely a 1-hour task. This isn't even the big move. This is just the low-hanging fruit, the floor, the thing everyone should do immediately for their emergency fund and short-term savings. But for your long-term wealth, we need to go further. Here's what most people don't realize about investing. You don't need to pick stocks. You don't need to time the market. You don't need to understand earnings reports or follow financial news or spend any real time on this at all. The single most powerful and accessible wealth-building tool available to regular people is the index fund, specifically a broad market index fund that tracks something like the S&P 500 or the total stock market. You buy the whole market, you hold it for decades, you don't try to beat it, you just let compounding do its thing. Warren Buffett, arguably the greatest investor of all time, has repeatedly said that his recommendation for the average person is simple. Buy a low-cost S&P 500 index fund and hold it, not because it's a shortcut, because it's the strategy that works. Here's the framework I'd suggest thinking about for your money. Tier 1, Liquid Emergency Fund. 3 to 6 months of expenses in a high-yield savings account. Done. Forget about it. Don't touch it unless it's an actual emergency. Tier 2, tax-advantaged retirement accounts. If your employer offers a 401k match, contribute at least enough to get the full match. That's an instant 50 to 100% return on that money. Nothing beats it.
Beyond that, contribute to a Roth IRA if you're eligible, up to $7,000 per year. Inside these accounts, invest in low-cost index funds. Tier 3, taxable brokerage account. Any additional long-term savings, money you won't need for 5+ years, should be in a brokerage account invested in index funds. Not savings, not checking, not under a mattress. The vehicle matters. Where you park your money matters, and the difference between getting it right and getting it wrong, as we've seen in the math, can be 6 figures over a lifetime. I want to leave you with something that I think is more valuable than any specific account recommendation. The mindset shift you need to make is this: stop thinking about money as something to protect and start thinking about money as something to deploy. Money that isn't working is losing ground. Every day your money sits still, inflation is chipping away at it. Every year you wait to invest is a year of compounding you can never get back. The math on this is ruthless. Time is the single most important variable in the compound interest equation, and every year you spend playing it safe in a low-yield account is a year you can recover. There was a study done by Fidelity Investments a few years back where they analyzed which accounts at their brokerage performed the best over time. The results were surprising. The best-performing accounts belonged to people who had either forgotten they had the account or who had passed away. The people who performed the worst were the ones who checked frequently, reacted emotionally, and moved money around. The inactive investors beat the active ones because compounding rewards patience and punishes panic. You don't need to be clever. You don't need to be sophisticated. You need to be consistent, you need to be patient, and you need to stop mistaking stillness for safety. So here's what I want you to actually do after this video ends. Not someday, this week. First, look at where your savings are right now. If you have money sitting in a big bank savings account paying less than 1%, move it to a high-yield savings account. Keep your emergency fund there. This is a 1-hour task with hundreds or thousands of dollars of annual upside. Second, check your employer's 401k. If there's a match you're not getting, you are leaving free money on the table every single paycheck. Fix that this week. Third, if you don't have a Roth IRA, open one. You can do it in 20 minutes on Fidelity, Schwab, or Vanguard. Set up automatic monthly contributions, put it in a total market index fund, then leave it alone. Fourth, give yourself permission to be uncomfortable with volatility. Your investment account will go down sometimes. That's not failure. That's how it works. The people who build real wealth are the ones who see a 20% market drop and either buy more or do absolutely nothing while everyone else panics and sells at the bottom. The math is on your side. Time is on your side as long as you start. But every year you wait, that equation shifts a little further against you. I know this stuff can feel overwhelming. There are a million opinions out there and half of them are trying to sell you something. But the core principles here aren't complicated. Inflation is real. Compound interest is real. The cost of inaction is real. And the solution for most regular people is genuinely not that complicated. Earn more than inflation, let time do the heavy lifting, and don't confuse comfort with strategy. If this video helped you see your money differently, hit that thumbs up. It genuinely helps this channel reach more people who need to hear this stuff. And if you want to go deeper, I've got videos on exactly how to set up a Roth IRA from scratch, how to choose index funds, and how to think about risk at different stages of life. All of that is linked below. Drop your questions in the comments. I read them. I'll see you in the next one.